There are places in this world that don't want to be found. They sit, hidden, waiting in the dark corners of the earth where the trees grow too thick and the air smells like rot. I didn't believe it at first, but I learned the hard way. I was bored and looking for something exciting to do, as I wanted to get away from my normal boring life and try something different. A friend told me about an old house, deep in the woods. People said it was haunted or cursed, and had been forgotten for years. And now the forest had almost completely covered it. No one went near it anymore, not since the fire. They said the fire destroyed most of the house, and it still stood there, burned and broken. It wasn't just empty. It looked like something terrible had happened there. The fire burned down everything, leaving only blackened wood and the frame of the house. But the thing is, when you're curious, you don't always listen to warnings, as curiosity is like a craving, you can't stop. So one evening, even though I knew it might be a bad idea, I decided to go look for the house. The house was very far from the nearest road. It was hidden deep inside the forest. The farther I walked, the more the trees seemed to close in around me. It felt like the forest didn't want me to leave. By the time I reached the edge of the woods, the sky was already getting so dark and the sun was going down fast, like it wanted to run away and not shine on the place I was going. The air smelled thick and heavy. It was the smell of wet dirt and old rotting leaves. It was the kind of smell that stays on your clothes and skin even after you leave. I had to push through thick bushes and sharp thorns that scratched my arms and legs. The vines felt like hands, pulling and tearing at my skin with every step I took. Roots stuck out of the ground like hidden traps, and I tripped over them more than once. They scraped my shins and almost made me fall. The plants were so thick, it felt like the forest didn't want me to go any further. Every branch I passed seemed to grab my clothes, or scratch my face, like the trees were trying to stop me or tell me something. It was like they were alive, and even angry, but I didn't turn back. I couldn't. Something inside me kept pushing me forward. I didn't know why, but it felt like something was calling to me. Like a voice, not out loud, but in the back of my mind, whispering over and over, "Keep going." I didn't know what I was looking for, I just knew I had to find it, even though every instinct screamed at me to turn around and leave. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, I saw the house. It loomed ahead of me, barely visible through the trees, shrouded in the thick fog that seemed to rise from the ground itself. When I finally stood in front of it, I felt a coldness that had nothing to do with the temperature. It was a chill that went deeper, something that sank into your bones, something ancient. The house was old, its walls sagging under the weight of time, its structure barely holding together. Windows were boarded up, the planks warped and splintered, as though something inside had desperately tried to claw its way out. The roof sagged, threatening to collapse in on itself, like it was holding its breath. But what disturbed me the most was the silence. The forest was silent. No birds, no wind, nothing. The house looked like it had been abandoned for decades, forgotten by everyone. I stood there for a long time just staring at it, trying to convince myself it was nothing. Maybe it was just an old house, a relic from another time, but something deep in my gut told me I shouldn't be here, that I was trespassing. I took a deep breath, the air heavy in my lungs, and like an idiot, I crossed the threshold. Inside was worse. The moment I stepped through the door, I was hit with a wave of staleness, the air thick and stale, like the house hadn't breathed in years. Dust hung in the air like fog, swirling lazily around me as I moved deeper. The floorboards groaned beneath my feet, each step sending a shudder through the house. The walls were lined with peeling wallpaper, faded and water-stained, their colours so far gone that they looked like the remnants of a nightmare. The smell of mildew and decay was so overpowering that I had to fight to keep from gagging, my stomach turning with every breath I took. I moved through the rooms, my flashlight beam slicing through the dark, illuminating broken furniture and forgotten relics of another life. Every shadow seemed to stretch unnaturally long, as if the house itself was breathing and shifting in response to my presence. The deeper I went, the more oppressive the atmosphere became, like something heavy was pressing in from every side. But then I started noticing something that made the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. Scattered around the rooms were old pictures and photographs of a family, their faces frozen in time. But something about them was off. Their smiles were too wide, too forced, and their eyes too vacant. The edges of the photographs were curled, yellowed with age, and smudged with what looked like old dirt or ash. They didn't look like the kind of people who would live in a house like this. They looked wrong. Something about their eyes was strange. I couldn't tell if they had faded by time, or if the pictures had been altered, but their gazes were hollow, empty. I turned to leave the room with my heart pounding in my chest, but that's when it happened. The door slammed shut behind me. I tried to brush it off, telling myself it was just the wind, but then, in the silence, I heard it. A soft creak, like the sound of footsteps echoing from the floor above. I froze, holding my breath. There was no way anyone else was here. I had been completely alone since I entered the house. The footsteps came again, slower this time and deliberate. The sound of something heavy dragging across the floor above me. A dragging, scraping sound like furniture being moved across a floor that hadn't been touched in years. Without thinking, I turned and bolted toward the door, my footsteps thundering against the old, creaking floorboards. My hands shot out, grabbing for the handle in a frantic blur, but when I twisted it, it wouldn't budge. It was stuck and frozen, as if it had fused with the door frame itself. My heart pounded against my ribs as panic surged through me, making my hands tremble as I fought with the door handle. I threw my weight against the door, shoulder first, but it barely gave an inch, like something heavy, something unseen, was pressing against it from the other side, holding it closed with a strength I couldn't match. The air around me grew colder, heavier, and each breath was harder to draw in. It was as if the house itself didn't want me to leave, as if I had crossed some invisible line and now it was too late to turn back. I turned around. My mind was blurred, and my heart was hammering in my chest. That's when I saw it. In the corner of the room, barely visible in the flickering light of my flashlight, a shadow moved. It was tall, thin, and watching me. I couldn't make out what it was, but I knew it wasn't human. It stood in the dark, its form twisted and unnatural, barely discernible from the shadows. For a moment, it just stood there, unmoving, as if it were waiting for me to move. I tried to scream, but no sound came out. And then it shifted. It didn't walk. It didn't run. It just moved closer. The air around me turned cold, and I knew deep in my bones that whatever it wasn't meant to be here. And neither was I. I don't know what it was that followed me through that house, but whatever it was, it didn't want me there. If you ever find yourself near an abandoned house in the woods, trust me, keep walking, because once you step inside, you might not be able to heal from what you saw and might never come back. If you want to hear what happened next, make sure to subscribe to Insidious Inc., turn on the bell, and leave a like. Stay tuned, as you won't be ready for what comes after this.